Moksha Lila, Haribol, Markandeya
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Okay, let's get started with Prabhupada's pranam mantras. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishna Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamini Pranamane Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Let's go to page 1, introduction of Bhagavad Gita, page 1. Okay. Om Jnana Tindarandhyasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest ignorance.
I was born in the darkness of ignorance.
And my spiritual master opened my eyes.
And my spiritual master opened my eyes
with the torch of knowledge.
with the torch of knowledge.
I offer my respectful obeisance unto him.
I offer my respectful obeisances unto him.
Okay, we're in chapter 9, correct?
Yes, Maharaj.
And what is the shloka for today?
32. 32, Maharaj.
32.
Okay, yes, another diamond of a jewel of a verse, okay? Mangi parata vyapastritya yepi supapayoniyaha striyo vaishastata shudras tipiyanti parangatim. Translation, O son of Pritha, those who take shelter in me, though they be of lower birth, women, Vaishyas, merchants, and Shudras, workers, can attain the supreme destination. Purport. It is clearly declared here by the Supreme Lord that in devotional service, there is no distinction between the lower and higher classes of people. In the material conception of life, there are such divisions. But for a person engaged in transcendental devotional service to the Lord, there are not. Everyone is eligible for the supreme destination. In the Srimad Bhagavatam 2:4-18, it is stated that even the lowest, who are called chandalas, dog eaters, can be purified by association with a pure devotee. Therefore, devotional service and the guidance of a pure devotee are so strong that there's no discrimination between the lower and higher classes of people. Anyone can take to it. The most simple person taking shelter of the pure devotee can be purified by proper guidance. Good. So we'll just stop it there for a minute. This verse then confirms Krishna's quality of equanimity, being open to all persons, regardless of background. And it would, you know, the Shastras have interesting things to say about classifications of people. We know that Krishna he had backed up the infrastructure of what we call the Varna and Ashram system that's mentioned in chapter 4. That means that people are, let's say, placed into a category based on their psychophysical self. Either as a Brahmin, a Kshatriya, a Vaishya, or a Shudra. And a Brahmin is usually a visionary kind of person. Someone who's gone through an incredible amount of training through studies of, let's say, introspection. And such persons have performed a lot of austerities and so on like that. And then we talk about the Shudra classification of people, which is most of us, people who do physical labor and so on like that. and don't have much time, or don't take the time or care to take much time to study the psychological makeup of people, and to study human behavior, the finer details of a person's psyche. So most people are in the Shudra category, and Shastra does say, Kalo Shudra Sambhava. Most of us are just not even up to that mark. Most of us are just simpleton people, members of the Kali Yuga. We don't have much of a chance. We're destined for being in a deep, dark pit in a tunnel. And so there was a time when people were, let's say, could be fitting into one of these particular categories. Brahmins, when we always talk about, there was always just a few. There's such small percentage of Brahmins, and they were usually, it was a role played by men, and who were like priests, doctors, philosophers, let's see, what else? Prophets, even. They play astrologers, astronomers, people of that kind of background, that kind of category. Hard to find those kind of people. But they usually provide insight, foresight. They encourage us to move forward, give a sense of direction, and that way they're directors of the community. And the executors of the community would be everybody else. And especially the Kshatriyas, they're there to enforce, to see that these days, if you go for your vaccine or something, you go to a place and it's policed a little bit. There's people with uniforms at the entranceway. And there's just, they have a whole system down to see that the operation is smooth. You go in, you get jabbed, and then you go out. That's the term, jabs. And so that's the kind of system that we have in human society. I remember when I was in Edmonton on the third walk across Canada, and I think I told you, Bruce, this before. Yeah, 2 officers came. It was at rush hour. They were, had their sirens on. They were rushing just because they wanted to get a picture taken of the walking monk. But more than that, we sat there and stood there talking for a bit, and said, in our tradition, those of us who are in robes, we're like the priests of the community. We give direction, and you guys are the Kshatriyas, and we would work like this, hand in hand, like this. You would be enforcing the policies that we put in place. You were there for the safety of the people, especially the physical safety. And our job as Brahminical people would be to see to the overall wellness of people, not only the physical body, but also the spiritual presence, the Atma itself. So the guys, 2 young guys, I've got some just iconic photos of me standing with the guys there. And they just found it very interesting. In fact, we were standing at rush hour, the traffic had to slow down. The people were looking with their, in their brows, they had lines. They were really concerned, is there an accident here? And what they saw us standing there, kind of just yucking it up, laughing, and people were wondering, where's the accident? Where's the problem? There should be a challenge here, but there wasn't a challenge. I was just giving a mini Bhagavatam class to 2 officers off of the Yellowhead Highway in Edmonton. It was wonderful. It was beautiful. One of the greatest moments of all. So that's the way it was. And the Vaishya people are a large group of percentage of the population. They are what's considered the breadbasket of the community. They are the stomach. They provide the food. They're food providers. They're producers. And they also deal with money. They lend money. They provide money. They make money. And they just basically help people. And And the Shudra population, as I mentioned earlier, these are the people that work more in the physical sense. They love doing what they're doing, and they have respect for the other classifications of people. This is called the Varna and Ashram system, which has been discussed a few times before. So Krishna's saying here in this verse, I love to recite this one. Mangi parata vyapasritya, yepi syupapayunya. What Krishna is saying is that everybody's welcome to my domain. Everyone can come to my house. Come home. Come back to Godhead. We're having a party. And it's an ongoing 24/7 party. And this is what Krishna's offer is, to ask everyone to go back home where we all belong. So it's like there's no place like home, and that home is determined by Krishna himself, the spiritual realm, what we call Vaikuntha. So I think that Vaishnavi, you could ask someone else who would like to read the rest of this particular paragraph. Anybody up for it?
I can read.
Please.
I
Starts
think
at the most simple person.
Is it just the second sentence?
No, you can start at the most simple man taking shelter. I think it's okay to start there.
Mm-hmm.
Or according to the different modes of material nature.
Okay.
You see that?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
According to the different modes of material nature, men are classified in the mode of goodness, brahmanas, the mode of passion, kshatriyas or administrators, the mixed modes of passion and ignorance, vaishyas or merchants, and the mode of ignorance, shudras or workers. Those lower than them are called chandalas, and they are born in sinful families. Generally, the association of those born in sinful families is not accepted by the higher classes. But the process of devotional service is so strong that the pure devotee of the Supreme Lord can enable people of all the lower classes to attain the highest perfection of life. This is possible only when one takes shelter of Krishna. As indicated here by the word vyapasritya, one has to take shelter completely of Krishna. Then one can become much greater than great jnanis and yogis.
Okay, yes, so it's just reiterated by the Lord here that everyone's welcome. The invitation's a broad one, and the objective is to be with Krishna where we once were, and no one is eliminated. Prabhupada does use the word sinful. Okay, it's not a word that I choose to use when I'm talking these days. I consider it one of the words that the words that Dirty does in a sort of English style, coming from English background. But we're talking about people who violate, who don't follow Vedic standards, and but that's not a problem if somebody doesn't. The good thing about not following Vedic standards or being adharmic is that you can become dharmic. That's always the best thing, right? Like I remember the day I finished my first walk across Canada. It was in St. John's, Newfoundland. And we had a local guy, who was physically okay, mentally okay, from what I could see. He walked with me a bit. And we just put him through a little examination and, to lift his spirits a little bit. And I asked him, "Are you employed?" He said, "No." "But are you employable?" And he said, "Yes." So that's the way you have to look at things. In one of our communities, the morale was really low at one time. And one devotee, he had the idea, hey, this is great. He just kind of blurted out in the crowd. He said, we're at a great spot, everybody. We've hit rock bottom. We can't go any lower. We can only go up now. So the good thing about hitting rock bottom, even if you fall from grace, if I want to use that term, or if you get into bad habits and get into a lull in your spiritual life, is that, there's always hope to come up. You can spring up. In fact, some of the people that have been the most, call them sinful, if you will, the likes of Jagai and Madai and the pastimes of Chaitanya Leela, they became the best devotees. They became so firm and their conviction was strong after having been womanizers and drunkards and doing all kinds of criminal things and being aggressive and bold. They became they became angels. They flipped. They just flipped around, turned around 180 degrees, if you will. And so it is possible. It is possible. So we want, this is another one of those verses that offer hope to the individual, So I have seen it myself personally. Some people are on the devotional path and they fell down, or they had that's we call a fall down. They had a slip and made an error or 2 or 3 or 4, but they picked themselves back up. If we go back to verse 30, which we are looking at, Apichit Sudaracharo, even if you commit an abomination, you can be reinstated when you are properly situated. And the proper situation translates it. Well, if you've got the will, you have the faith that if I continue with the process, I will succeed. So again, hope is an important word for human beings. I just came from the park and I met a lady. She was Russian, and I was on the phone, sitting on the park bench. She was pacing back and forth, and I could tell by the way she was walking, the pace, and the way she was kind of looking. She wanted my attention. So, okay, I finished with my phone call and she came over and she was just talking about a divorce she went through. And that I picked up on that she was kind of lonely, And the good thing about being lonely is that you get out of loneliness, right? The good thing about being overweight is that you can lose weight. The good thing about being underweighted is that you can gain weight. You just have to again, flip everything, And if you have moments of depression, well, you don't have to be that way. In fact, when I was on the park bench just before I met the Russian woman, was a local guy. And I've met him before. He said, hey, do you listen to jokes? Monks listen to jokes? And so then he told me a joke. And of course, jokes have a specific role to play in society. What do they do? Can anybody answer? Tell me. What does a joke do for you? What's it supposed to do for you, an individual? You can unmute. Tell me.
It's supposed to make you
one feel. Oh, okay. Please go ahead.
I heard Shanti. Do you want to say it? Shanti, was that you?
No, Mars, that wasn't me.
Sounded like you. Sorry. Okay, Arjun, you said something. What was it?
The joke is supposed to make you laugh, Maharaj.
Yeah, make you laugh. And someone else said something. It kind of came through as a muddle mumble.
I was saying something, Maharaj. It just makes things look lighter, not so heavy and depressing.
Not so grim.
Serious.
Yeah. No, that's another thing to consider, is that Prabhupada was very good at being like that. He would crack jokes. When you look at his pictures, you think he's very, sober and so kind of severe. And some pictures he looks ultra severe and not just grave, but stern, And if you read a book like Mukunda Maharaj's Miracle on 22nd Avenue, you can see Prabhupada was very human-like. And he would crack jokes. And he would give everybody a nickname. The person who spent a lot of time in the kitchen was Kirtanananda and called him Kitchenananda. Gargamuni, he liked to make money, for the mission, for the Prabhupada's movement. So he called him Gargamoney, And Shruti Kirti, he says it's too long a name. We call him Shruto. And I don't know what that means, but just the terms that he used. He knew how to mix gravity with lightness, as we're hearing is mentioned. It's a very important aspect of spiritual life. There has to be moments of joy. And so when you look at Krishna Leela, he was full of fun, isn't it? I would say later on, as he, call him in his maturation, he got serious. He spoke to Arjuna these, critical words of sobriety, and he was more serious. But all through his Leela, there was always a lightness about him. After all, he's the God that dances. He's the God that smiles. He's the God of love. There's no God amongst the gods that can measure up to Krishna's ability to make light of what is grave being in this world. So that's why we love him, right? And that's why we love Prabhupada, because he was able to bring that element around of lightness. Okay, so let us feel light, let us feel bright, because every one of us fit into this category of being simpletons, being like Shudra, lower than Shudra. When you can't follow your Dharma, it actually means you're lower than Shudra. Anyways, high, low, medium, rare. It really, we're all the same. We're in the same predicament. Where, if we were on Gilligan's Island, does anybody remember that old TV series? There was an old TV series called Gilligan's Island, and there was a rich business magnate and his wife. They got stranded on an island. They went on a cruise, on a small boat cruise, and then there was a professor, a high IQ man, and then there was a movie star there. She was all into her looks and everything, and they had all these different characters, and Gilligan was one of them, sort of a goofy, lively American type, and his skipper. They ran the boat, the yacht, and they were all coming from different backgrounds, and they had to learn how to live with each other, even though they came from varying backgrounds. And ISKCON is like that. We have people, we've come together, and I would never, in my imagination, hang out with some of the people that I know, because some are highly intelligent, very intellectual, and I'm not a scholar. And then there's some people who are like real characters in our movement, right? Real characters. Well, if you go to a place like Mayapur, Vrindavan, everyone comes there. And Bhadri Narayan Swami, who runs our project there in California, his mother came to visit. She's very favorable, and she sat back and watched all the people coming in and said, "You've got them all," meaning all the members of the circus are in the movement. So what's beautiful about our society is that Prabhupada has embraced everyone. He's accepted everyone. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was like that. He accepted Jagai and Madai. They were low class folks. These were two guys that actually came from a Brahminical family. But they fell out of grace. They slipped. They became debauchees. They became spoiled brats. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted them. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted all kinds of people from varying backgrounds. The people from Buddhist backgrounds, Muslim backgrounds, or all kinds. And during his time, there was even Christians coming into India. We never hear about it in our Shastra, but the records are there in other Shastras that we don't read, that Christians had already come into the parts of India, Goa, and so on like that. Because one of Jesus's, St. Thomas, one of his disciples had started the mission of Christianity in India. So Mahaprabhu Chaitanya, he brought everybody in. And Prabhupada did the same thing. He built a house into which the whole world could live in, a shelter for all. Yeah. So there is hope for all of us. Some people, they just came off of drugs and they just came in and Prabhupada gave them halava. He gave them halava. And hot halava. Hot, like hot off the press, meaning warm, sweet, buttery halava. And you eat it, you eat that, and you replace your drugs with that. And I know one particular devotee, one of our scholars, he was kind of like a rundown hippie, but he had something bright inside of him. And he just came back for the prasadam. And he started to translate books. Steve Jobs, everybody knows about him. He came for the prasadam, like that's what drew him, the prasadam, to become what he was. He used to come barefoot and he'd walk quite a distance to get the free food at the Hare Krishna temple. It's amazing, isn't it? So everyone's eligible. In fact, patita pavana, the term we use sometimes, indicates that if you're fallen, you're looked at first. If you're a lowly creature, you're looked at first. You're looked at more favorably. In fact, my experience is some of the neighborhoods I've been through, like both in Canada and the US, like run down neighborhoods. And, like there was one place in Gary, Indiana. If anybody's from Gary, Indiana, please don't be offended. But that place has really hit rock bottom. And I saw a lot of people walking on the streets. And so I met one guy, he was sitting outside a barber shop. And I asked him, I told him, hey, my name is Bhaktimarga Swami. He said, yeah, I'm Jim. And I said, hey, I'm doing this walk across the US and I was just wondering if you could answer a question for me. Yeah, sure, go ahead. And he said, well, why is it that so many, I've walked through many towns and a lot of people are walking around here. I said, hey man, when you're on an overdose, you ain't gonna get into a car and start driving around, you know what I mean? So in other words, people are so drugged up that they can't be in a car or afford a car. And so they're just kind of like walking around. But what I found interesting about that neighborhood is I could talk to anybody there. I remember one time I couldn't sleep. I was staying at the Atlanta temple. It was Rath Yatra time. I was traveling with a bus tour. And I couldn't sleep, so I started to walk downtown. Our temple is not that far away. And so, my God, like some of the people, I decided to walk with one of them so that I could feel like I was one of them, And I remember a couple of guys saying, aren't you scared being out here? No, not really. God's with me. We have some shining examples of people who come to Krishna consciousness coming from interesting backgrounds. And so this is the point about the verse. Everyone is welcome. Okay, like it's categorically men, women can come and men can come, you know, and everyone's welcome. And the third gender can come. Everybody can come, you know, gay folks, anybody is welcome to come and participate in Krishna consciousness. All that is required is that you make a sincere effort to cultivate your love for the Supreme. That's all. Does anybody have any questions?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Maharaj, I'm sure you have heard this before. Why are women classified under lower births?
I think it's the way that, well, here's the way I understand it. Everyone was in a lower birth. There were only a few Brahmins. Their percentage of human population was very small. But we have known women who are very Brahminical, you know, they're very intelligent, but they're very bright. We might be arguing from the point of view that in former ages, it was a little more obvious that way. But in this day and age, what the Shastras have to say, Kalo Shudra Sambhava, everyone is, you know, our consciousness is low, men, women, you know, our objectives are low. So that is the point I'd like to make on that. Like it says women, but almost all men too are in that class.
You're muted, Maharaj.
Yeah, I'm muted because someone was trying to call me. His name's Gabriel, and he's a tree planter. He's planting trees up north. And he's probably getting eaten alive by black flies. And he probably wants to ask me, what can I do about it? Okay, so yeah, this is a part of our Shastras. Sometimes these things pop up about the situation with women. But then what Prabhupada does, I think he very masterfully balances everything out quite well. If you go through the whole gamut of the books, he says women are intelligent. In fact, Krishna states in the Gita that there are feminine qualities which are listed in the absolute qualities here. I know that we were just we had Mother's Day the other day, and so I was quoting from that shloka. Let's get to it. Here we are. 1034. Okay. If you want a balancing act, here it goes. 1034. Krishna says, I'm all devouring death, and I'm the generating principle of all that is yet to be. Among women, I am fame, fortune, fine speech, memory, intelligence, steadfastness, and patience. These are generally what Prabhupada refers to as feminine qualities, okay? So it's not that we can say that as a classification of people, women have a bad rap. It's balanced out. I think what you have to look at, in which context are we looking, in which context? And for instance, it's often known that women can show emotions in a very powerful way during a tough time when men will maybe kind of like see through it or walk through it. At least from my experience is that what I've heard some women say, I'm sure it's coming from a feminist vein, men are, their emotions are underdeveloped. And because I'm a Libra, I always have to defend someone who's being attacked. So I said, oh yeah, well, women are over emotionally developed. So here's Krishna's divine plan. He has men and women coming together, and the combination is pretty good. It works out pretty good. They are, let's say, complement each other very well. So when it comes to decision making, which should be a combined effort, you can come up with a very nice, well-balanced situation. What do you think about that? Left wing, right wing, the bird won't fly unless if you have a right wing and left wing. Right? So even for children, children need mom and dad. They need both.
Yeah,
And,
that is good, Maharaj, as long as two people are making the decision as opposed to one, right?
well, what are you want? You want to get personal and talk about your
My wife
situation?
is actually saying, oh yeah, we too have to make decisions. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Well, it's good to get different perspectives, you know. I mean, that's kind of the parliamentary system. And it's the system that the Six Nations used. And not far from where I am, well, I'd say a little over an hour's drive, our indigenous people, they established this like Six Nations where people come together and they organize themselves in a parliamentary way. And even the Europeans got some of their ideas from how they conducted their governance. That's very interesting, isn't it? Prabhupada established the GBC like that. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj, same thing. Let's do things in a kind of democratic way. Let everyone have something to say, then come up with a decision. And the Democrats should be. I don't want to, use like American political parlance. When you're democratic, you're supposed to be hearing from all kinds of people. Yeah. Okay, there were a few of the people who had some remarks they want to come up with. I have a feeling we're not going to go beyond this verse today. Okay. Yeah, so we're at 9:32. Okay. So
Maharaj,
anybody else want something to say?
I have one question real quick. I always thought from reading Bhagavad Gita a few times now in my spiritual life that Prabhupada was referring to less intelligence in regards to reading scripture and following all the rules and regulations and the austerities, that men are more advantaged because they are not rearing to the children, and so they don't have to spill out so much emotional intelligence, so they can really focus more on practical spiritual life, while women, they have to attend to all the material needs of children and family life. And
Yes,
so
that's
in that
yes.
sense,
Right. I really appreciate that input. That is a fact. Unfortunately, in Kali Yuga, men don't take advantage of their natural toughness. They oftentimes resort to drinking and, doing all the things where they lose their sense of robustness, and determination and conviction. So it's, but these are ideals that we should go towards, but I appreciate your explanation very much. Yeah. And again, the reason why it's good for a man to listen to a woman to listen to a man, so you got, again, two perspectives. Yeah. Because they are wired differently. They're wired different. That's right. Thank you. Somebody else?
Yes. Regarding the women, I would like to say that all over the world, when we talk about, can you hear me?
I certainly can.
Thank you. All over the world, not only in Hindu temples, Vaishnava temples, churches, and it's always full of women. Prabhupada said that because bhakti is soft, so women are more pro bhakti.
They participate more, yes. Prabhupada did say that, yeah, in one of the books. Yeah.
And also, I forgot to say thank you so much, because the way you explain that verse is so sweet and so digestible. Anyway, but then I want to say also what Prabhupada said about Krishna, how he personified perfection, and now he accepts everybody, because he covers all the four groups, because as a Brahmana, he taught Bhagavad Gita. As a Kshatriya, he killed so many demons. As Vaishya, he loves to take care of cow. And as Shudra, he loves to play the flute. That's all I want to say.
Okay, thank you. That's a beautiful perspective also. Thank you, thank you. I think we had some other devotees who want to say something.
Krishna Maharaj, I had a different angle to this, especially applicable for devotee families, both husband wife. They are serving Krishna. So being on the absolute platform, so that wipes out all the differences between the man and the woman. So both are more or less same. Both are serving Krishna. So both are. That's how I read from one of the book Prabhupada explained.
Well, that's true. Yes, thank you, Rasraj. We don't need to get too tied up in the bodily identification, because it's through service that it kind of just wipes out differences and makes us all one, complete, one unit, all unified in bhakti. Yes, but at the same time, you don't want to not to deny the fact that, you know, physically we are of different structures. So therefore, categorically, he says, what's the word? Striya means women, Vaishya means mercantile, Shudra. So he does, just like he says in the second chapter, he's talking about, hey, we're all spirits. He's saying, addressing Arjuna, you're a spiritual being. I'm a spiritual being. And all these other warriors on the battlefield, we're all spiritual beings. So he identifies, you know, the different categories of people that are there, but at the same time says we're ultimately spirits. So I think if we should be in our bhakti tradition, be able to accommodate both concepts. I have this physical body and it has a particular role to play. But ultimately, I'm not this body. I will be stripped of this body. And so I'm left with the naked truth, which is that I'm a spiritual being. And that means I'm a servant of the Lord. Yeah. So let us acknowledge the differences. Let's also acknowledge the similarities. Good. Anything else? Anybody? Andy, do you have?
Maharaj, I have
Yeah.
a question.
Okay, yes.
So
Dharma.
here in the book it says, according to the different modes of material nature, men are classified in the mode of goodness, mode of passion, the mode of mixed mode of passion and ignorance, and mode of ignorance. Now, in during the days, we get up in the morning, say Brahma Murta, do chanting. I'm in the mode of goodness, able to focus, well balanced. And
Right.
when I go to work, it's a passion. We want to get it done, passion. Go to sleep, become ignorance.
Yes.
So, do we classify ourselves based on the time during the day?
You can say that we meet during the course of the day, we meet all the modes. We shake hands with the modes, the three modes every day. There's no doubt about that, and that's okay. But we're looking at what you have to look at, what drives you? What's your main push? What's that inner push? What gets you moving? What makes you? And so for a Brahminical person, it's, hey, I get to get up in the morning, I take a shower. Yeah, I get to look at Shastra. Yeah, I get to chant on my beads a bit. You're really into the Krishna thing. Whereas a person who's maybe in the Shudra category, the alarm clock rings like several times before they actually get up. Or the rooster's on, and he does it several times, almost as if to say, hey, bro, get up, get off your butt, and let's get on with life, So there are people have different passions, and those who are passionate towards the spiritual, they're Brahminical. Those who are passionate more towards the physical stimulations. Yeah, we were talking about those who are a little more into their physicality. Yeah, so we touch everything every day. We touch Sattva Gun, Rajagun, Tamagun every day. But if you have training in Krishna consciousness, you can just kind of like walk through it all. Like all this is like a mist, it's like a fog. Just walk through the fog and you'll be okay.
Thank you, Maharaj.
And I like that idea about a fog. One time I was on the East Coast in Canada, I was walking on a trail and there was a thick fog. And suddenly the sun kind of just burnt through. And there were two guys at a plaza, they were smoking cigarettes, and I just came through. And then there was a clearing. And these two guys were looking at me, because my robes were flowing a little bit in the mist. I walked out of the mist and said, "Where are you from?" And I walked closer to them, really close. And I said, "I'm from Toronto." And I was just trying to play the game a little bit. So anyways, the idea is just walk through, just like the plane must fly through the dark clouds, the light clouds, and sometimes the clear sky. And it has to fly through torrential rain and turbulence. It has to fly, So a devotee has to be like an expert pilot who knows how to go through all kinds of turbulence. You ever been in a rough plane ride? Where and suddenly it drops, whoa, whoa, and everyone just goes nuts. I wouldn't want to be on the toilet at that time. Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Guru Maharaj, yes, I have a question.
Yes.
I had the same question than Shesha, but you have already responded that question. But I have another question. For example, is it possible that all of us, I mean the devotees who are not sons of other devotees, are considered like lower bird, because we are like you understand?
You don't have any training, no culture, whatever this and that.
Yes.
Well, I think we should quote, from Kalo Shudra Sambhava. That means Kalo. Anybody born in Kali, we're lower than Shudra. We don't even fit into this classification. We don't fit into this infrastructure at all. There are practically no Brahmins, and yet some people have inclinations. There practically aren't even a Shudra. You know what a Shudra person who likes to work with his body. He works all day. He can be a workaholic, but he does all the right, he's a moral person, doesn't swear on the job site, and he works for his family. It's totally, you do have those types of people. They're better off than the charlatan meditators. Better to be a sincere sweeper of the street than to be a charlatan meditator. Have you heard that phrase? Like a person who sweeps the street. Better to be a sincere sweeper than to be, come across like, I am a great yogi, and talks about renunciation, but he's got a few girls lined up there in queue, and every night he's with somebody else, so that's what we're talking about here, being sincere in endeavors. Like I remember seeing guys working on the railroad, and we made connections. We even emailed back and forth after. I stopped for a minute and they stopped, and they were just doing repairs, There was someone dropped them off and they were just to doing repairs on this so the train could go by, to take the grains through the prairies. And I felt I could get along better with them than some sophisticated guy in a suit. It was all about being snooty, you know. So, you know, I think that the honesty is really important, you know, to be a dharmic person, even if you're, you know, you work, you're a dig ditcher, you clean like I still have images of myself looking down at my dad. He went and opened up the sewer. He went down in deep boots and he was cleaning the sewage, you know, and it stank like anything. But for me, it was like nothing scared him. He would do anything for his family. So my heart is softened to see that, to think about that in the past, you know. And he was just doing honest work, that's all. And he was a very religious person, you know. So I think this is the bottom line. It doesn't matter what you do. You can have a high-browed position. You can, you know, work in the entire Empire State Building or at the top floor. You can be in a suit. You can be, you know, Mr. President, or you can just be a simple laborer. But if you are, let's say, if you are callous towards the needs of the people and you're not good with your family and you're just an egocentric megalomaniac, you know, prepare yourself for a ride to hell. Is that okay?
Yes, thank you so much, Guru Maharaj.
Just perform honestly, sincerely. Live by your codes, you know. Like a person who works with his body, he probably has less codes to live by, whereas a Brahmin, he's got a real sophisticated, you know, let's say protocol that he has to follow. It's not easy. You know, he might be a totally sophisticated person, the Brahmin, but if he's not really sincere about his work, then what is it worth? You know, so live honestly, work honestly, and you'll be loved by the Supreme and the people around you. You'll win respect. When you're honest, you win respect. People love you. Can't be emphasized enough, right? I mean, and that's also one of the qualities of a Brahmin. Like there's a little bit of a Brahmin in any, even just like a laborer can be. I know some guys, they're just work real hard. They're with the drill, and they got the softest heart. You know, you wonder, wow, what kind of human being are you? All right, anybody else? Connor, any feedback?
No, Maharaj, it's kind of, you answered my questions earlier, and a couple of the other things I was going to ask, you just pretty much answered.
Okay, thank you. Keep in touch. We're on every week.
I will say one thing you said about having a passion for it, like we were talking about earlier. Yeah, some people have inclination, like, oh, we were discussing me going police academy and whatnot, more of a Kshatriya. It's inevitable that we're going to touch all three gunas. And I think my biggest issue is that it's hard for me to accept that I touch the mode of ignorance sometimes, but I need to be able to look past that and just do whatever I can to advance however I can. Because we're very limited with our resources right now. Like the temples you can't go in and donate to the temples and whatnot. And I think that gives us more time to, more of its personal development, you know, your sadhana, reading, chanting, being up, cleanliness. Personally, I've been learning a lot more vegetarian Indian recipes is what I've been doing.
Great. You know what, so what you can prepare nowadays? We had one of our boys from Hamilton. I told him about dandelion flower pakora because dandelions are coming out now.
Yep.
So you make them and they're wonderful. Okay.
I think you and I had a dandelion soup one time when we were out with our farm trips.
That could be. All right. Well, thank you for being on board with us. You're a member of the family now, unofficially.
Yeah, unofficially. It's nice to be, the groups like this are a good reason to keep on going. So for sure, if I have my 4 on 4 off and it's on a Thursday, I'll be here.
And if it's not Thursday, we've got other classes going on during the week. And you're welcome to be part of every one of them if you like.
I will. That much of ones I can.
All right. So what did we do today? We covered one verse, one purport, because these verses in chapter 9, they're so power packed with goodness. Oh yeah. And there's more to come. We've got 2 more shlokas. At this speed, we'll never get done. All right. Thank you so much, everybody.
Well, I see you coming out of the mist next week.
Am I what?
See you coming out of the mist next week.
Out of the mist?
When the mist clears,
Okay, sure.
Let's have some. I think we should have some special effects behind you.
Yeah. That's true.
You have to do a green screen.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk to Star Trek about it.
Star Trek. Yeah. Well, one thing I like about Ananta Shesh Prabhu here, he's got this real nice light side to him, right? You've got this funny edge to you. Whereas Vaishnavi, she worries so much, right? Isn't it true? Vaishnavi, your worry gets, let's say, tempered by his lightness, isn't it?
Sometimes she tells me, "Oh, you're talking to Maharaj. No, you got to be a little bit more respectful."
Oh, I see. We love you the way you are. So anyways, I know some of you stay on board, but I must go. All right?
Thank you, Maharaj.
So, Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha, Kripasanubhya Vachapatitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Arrivederci.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Face.